Welcome to Creativity, Leadership and Innovation. This is unit number 7, chapter number 6, Defining Organization Strategic Direction. In order to be creative and innovative in an organization, the organization needs to have a strategic direction or long-term direction as to where it wants to head in the following years. In this chapter, we will look at coherent technological innovation strategies that leverage the firm's existing competitive position and provide direction for future development of the firm. Formulating this strategy requires appraising the firm's environment, that is, understanding what is happening in its environment, appraising the firm's strengths, weaknesses, competitive advantage, and core competencies, articulating an ambitious strategic intent, determining the key resources and capabilities the firm needs to develop or acquire to meet its long-term objectives. SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and it is a tool that is used to assess a firm's internal and external environment. This slide represents the SWOT analysis of Microsoft. Some of its strengths include market leader in client operating systems, large clientele, stable profits. Some of its weaknesses include Windows 8 negative user response, lack of mobile market share, customer dissatisfaction for mobile products. Some of its opportunities lie in acquiring different firms, expanding its mobile device market, and promoting its SkyDrive for cloud storage. Its threats include Google Drive and other MS Office competitors, and similarly other operating systems like Linux and Mac OS. Situational analysis using SWOT matrix. The purpose of SWOT analysis is to transform your weaknesses into strengths and your threats into opportunities. This slide represents some of the strategies that can be used by a firm to improve its internal and external environment. Let's focus on the green section here. SO strategies, strengths and opportunities. Generate strategies here that use strengths to take advantage of opportunities. WO strategies. Generate strategies here that take advantage of opportunities by overcoming weaknesses. ST strategies, which is generate strategies here that use strengths to avoid threats. And WT strategies, generate strategies here that minimize weaknesses and avoid threats. And if strategies are built by a company based on these 4 quadrants, then it is likely to succeed. Porter's 5 forces, a model of industry analysis. In order to analyze the industry, Michael Porter presents with 5 forces. Michael Porter was born in 1947. He is a professor at Harvard Business School, and he introduced the Porter's 5-force model, and he has written over 18 books and 125 academic journals. These are the 5 industrial forces. Let's take each one of them. The first one is threat of new entrants, that is, if new competition arrives in the industry. Bargaining power of the customers, threat of substitutes, bargaining power of the suppliers, and competitive rivalry within the industry. Before going deeper into these forces, let's look at why these forces are important. In order to deal with competition, good decision making is required, which is based on sound business strategy and an understanding of industrial forces. Industrial analysis. Industrial analysis requires understanding the industry relevance, understanding the industry players, understanding the structure of the industry, and anticipating future changes. Various different strategies can be developed. A competitive strategy, cost-effective strategy, market dominance, new product development, contraction or diversification. Either you make more in different kinds of products or you limit yourself to a few important products. Price leadership, going global, re-engineering, downsizing, delayering, and restructuring. All these are strategies that can be used to compete effectively in the industry. And of course, measuring and monitoring these strategies' effectiveness is equally important. Let's look at each one of these forces. Threat of new entrant. New entrants to an industry typically bring to it new capacity, a desire to gain market share, and potentially substantial resources. An entry barrier is an obstruction that stops or makes it difficult for a company to enter an industry. So for example, entering into a grocery business is very easy, whereas entering into the aeronautical industry is difficult because of the barriers. The easier it is for new companies to enter the industry, the more cutthroat competition there will be. Factors that can limit the threat of new entrants are how loyal are the end users in the industry, how troublesome or hard is it for the end users to switch and use other products, does it require a large large seed capital to enter into industry? Are entries to this industry regulated by the government? How hard is it to gain access to distribution channels? How long does it take for new staff to acquire the necessary skills to do work? So these are some very important factors. Please make sure you reflect on them, and if you have any questions, please ask. The second force is threat of substitutes. A substitute product is a product that appears to be different but can satisfy the same need as another product. The identification of possible substitutes or services means searching for products or services that can perform the same function even though they have different appearance and may not appear to be easily substitutable. Threats of substitute in the Porter's theory actually means goods and services that do similar functions. An example of substitute products could be light bulbs versus tube lights, or laptops versus tablets, or even for some people, coffee versus tea. How many close substitutes are available? How pricey are the substitutes? What is the perceived quality of the substitutes? These are some important questions that you need to ask yourself before entering into an industry. When there is one successful product, it also leads to the creation of other products that can perform the same functions as the product of the same industry. Porter recommends that by doing advertising, product quality improvement, marketing, R&D, and product distribution, an industry can improve its collective position against the substitutes. Some of other substitutes that we often use are Facebook versus Instagram, or Twitter versus LinkedIn, or Google search versus Yahoo search, although I think most of us are using Google search now. The third force is rivalry among existing firms. In most industries, corporations are mutually dependent. A competitive move by one firm can be expected to have a noticeable effect on its competitors and thus may cause retaliation. How many close competitors exist in the industry? What are the size of your close competitors? What is the industry structure? Is it fragmented, consolidated, oligarchy, or a monopoly industry? What are the current industry rates? How high are exit barriers? Do your competitors have a high committed fixed cost, thus they have to operate even at loss? How diversified are your competitors? How extensively do your direct competitors advertise? Each competitor aims to serve different needs of the market segment with different mixes of price, product, service, and features. So understanding these points is very important. An example of the intensity of rivalry among firms can be easily seen in the fast food industry. Look at McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Burger King, Subway, or KFC. They all have the similar fast food product and compete extensively. Bargaining power of competitors. Buyers affect an industry through their ability to force down prices, bargain for higher quality or more services, and play competitors against each other. A buyer or a group of buyers is powerful if some of the following factors hold true. Large purchases. So if a business is doing large purchases, then it usually will be very powerful. Imagine a big superstore like CSD buying products from a small farmer. Backward integration. Backward integration means that the business also owns its suppliers, alternative suppliers. If the buyers have options to buy from different suppliers, again, they will be more powerful. Low cost to change suppliers. If the switching cost between going for one supplier versus another supplier is low, then the chances are that the buying power will be more. How large are your buyer's company? How many companies are there for the buyer to choose from? Are the buyer buying a huge volume? Do you depend only on a few buyers to sustain your sales? How hard is it for the buyers to switch and use a competing product? Are the buyers purchasing from you as well as your competitors? Do the buyers have the capacity to enter your business and produce goods themselves? If the firm's product is highly differentiated, buyers will typically experience less bargaining power. Usually, bigger companies, when they purchase, they usually have strong buying power. Bargaining power of suppliers. Suppliers are likely to be powerful if supplier industry is dominated by a few firms. Suppliers' products have few substitutes. Suppliers' product is important input to buyers' product. Suppliers' products are differentiated. Suppliers' products have high switching cost. You have already been given this assignment to apply Porter's 5 forces on a startup of your choice. The startup can be an online store, a homemade delivery service, a consultancy firm, or a medical robotic startup. Please make sure that you do your assignment in time. Relative power of other stakeholders. A sixth force should be added to Porter's list to include a variety of stakeholder groups from the environment. Some of these groups are the government, local communities, creators, trade associations, special interest groups, unions, and shareholders. Assessing the firm's current position. There is a very important difference between shareholder and stakeholder. A stakeholder has a stake in the business, and stake means an interest or a share in an undertaking. A stakeholder can be a group or an individual that has either material or immaterial stake or interest in the corporation. A stakeholder refers to a person or group that affects or are affected by an organization's decision, policies, and operations. Shareholder. Shareholder, on the other hand, has a share in the business, has a financial involvement in the business. Those who approach ethical decisions making from shareholder perspective focus on making decisions that are in the owner's best interest. Decisions are guided by the need to maximize returns on investment for the organization's shareholders. Stakeholders may include employees, suppliers, customers, competitors, government agencies, the news, media, community residents, and others. The idea behind stakeholders is based on ethical decisions being taken to make sound business decisions that work for the good of all affected parties. Stakeholder analysis is the identification and evaluation of corporate stakeholders. This can be done in 3 steps. The first step in stakeholder analysis is to identify primary stakeholders, those who have a direct connection with the corporation and who have significant buying power to directly affect the corporate activities. Primary stakeholders include customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, and creditors. Those that engage in economic transactions with the company as it carries out its primary purpose of providing society with goods and services are often primary stakeholders. The second step in the stakeholder analysis is to identify the secondary stakeholders, those who have only an indirect stake or interest in the corporation but who are also affected by the corporation activities. These usually include non-governmental organizations, NGOs such as Greenpeace, activists, local communities, trade associations, competitors, and governments. People or groups who, although they do not engage in direct economic exchange with the firm, are affected by or can be affected by its actions, and these are the secondary stakeholders. The third step in the stakeholder analysis is to estimate the effect on each stakeholder group from any particular strategic direction. In this process, we identify relevant stakeholders and we analyze their interest, influence, and power. 4 questions often help in this regard. Who are the relevant stakeholders? What are the interests of each stakeholders? What is the power of each stakeholder, voting, political, legal, and economic? How are the coalitions or partnerships likely to form and what would they be? Assessing the firm's current position. Internal strategic factors. Critical strengths and weaknesses that are likely to determine if the firm will be able to take advantage of opportunities while avoiding threats. Porter proposes that a manufacturing firm's primary activities usually begin with inbound logistics. That includes activities like raw material handling and warehousing. Go through an operations process in which a product is manufactured and continue on to the outbound logistics, which is warehousing and distribution, to marketing and sales, and finally to service, which includes activities like installation, repair, and sale of parts. Several support activities such as procurement, which is purchasing, technology development, which can be the function of the R&D department, human resource management, and firm infrastructure, accounting, finance, strategic planning ensure that the primary value chain activities operate effectively and efficiently. Each corporation has its own internal value chain of activities. This figure represents the corporate value chain. We have already talked about some primary activities, which include inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales and services. There are some support activities, which include firm infrastructure, HR, technology, and procurement, and combining these two will yield good profit margins. Value chain analysis. A value chain is a linked set of value-creating activities that begin with basic raw material coming from suppliers, moving on to a series of value-added activities involving in producing and marketing a product or service, and ending with distributors getting the final good into the hands of the ultimate customers. So the idea here is that as the product moves from one section to the other, value is being added to the product, from raw material to primary manufacturing to fabrication to distribution, and of course at the end to the retailer. At each stage, value is being added to the product. The difference between supply chain and value chain, this is very important. A supply chain consists of a series of activities in which a product or raw material is simply transferred from the starting point to an end point, whereas in the value chain, instead of just transferring, we add certain values to it. For example, suppose a supply chain is as follows: farmers, wholesalers, retailers, and customers. If the apples just pass through the same channels without any grading or sorting, then it's a supply chain. However, if at any stage we add some values to the apples, such as grading, sorting, packaging, or cold storage, then this becomes a value chain. So all value chains are supply chains, but not all supply chains are value chains. Please remember that and think over it. Core and distinctive competencies. Let's look at each of these terms: capability, competency, core competency, and distinctive competency. Capability. Capability is an organization's ability to utilize its resources, its business process, and routine. So if a business has good software engineers and it is utilizing them very efficiently, then it has a strong IT capability. Competency. Cross-functional, which is interdepartmental, integration and coordination of capabilities. A manufacturing company might be extremely successful in keeping its numbers of defects per thousand units produced extremely low. Core competency is a competency of a business that is essential or central to its overall performance and success. It is a collection of competencies that cross divisional boundaries. For example, new product development is a core competency if it goes beyond one division or department. Distinctive competency is any capability that distinguishes a company from its competitors, or when core competencies are superior to those of the competitors. Where do these competencies come from? A corporation can gain access to a distinctive competency in four ways. Asset endowment. It may be an asset endowment such as a key patent coming from the founding of the company. For example, Xerox grew on the basis of its original copying patent. Acquired from someone else. It may be acquired from someone else. For example, Whirlpool bought a worldwide distribution system when it purchased Philips Alliance division. Shared with another business. It may be shared with another business unit or alliance partner. For example, Apple Computer worked with a design firm to create special appeal of its personal computers and iPods. Built and accumulated within the company. It may be carefully built and accumulated over time within the company. For example, Honda carefully extended its expertise in small motor manufacturing from motorcycles to autos and to lawn mowers. Determining the sustainability of an advantage. Two characteristics determine the sustainability of a firm's distinctive competency: durability and imitability. Imitability means to copy or to duplicate, and durability means that it sustains over time. Durability, the rate at which a firm's underlying resources, capabilities, or core competencies depreciate or become obsolete. For example, new technology can make a company's core competency irrelevant. Imitability, the rate at which a firm's underlying resources, capabilities, or core competencies can be duplicated by others. Core competencies. It is relatively easy to learn and imitate another company's core competency or capability if it comes from explicit knowledge that can be easily articulated and communicated. However, if it comes from tacit knowledge, it will be difficult to imitate. Tacit knowledge is the knowledge that is not easily communicated because it is deeply rooted in employee experience or company's culture. Evaluating key resources, VRIO framework. Once the key strengths and weaknesses are identified, the firm can assess which strengths have potential to be a source of sustainable competitive advantage to implement its strategic intent for the future. How to identify the key resources? These four questions can be used to evaluate a firm's competencies. Value. Does it provide customer value and competitive advantage? Rareness. Do other competitors possess it? Imitability. Is it costly for others to copy or imitate? Organization. Is the firm organized to exploit the resources? Once you have realized the value, rarity, and imitability of your company's resources and capabilities, the next step is to organize your company in a way to exploit these resources. If done successfully, your company can enjoy a period of sustainable competitive advantage and innovation. Industry evolution. Fragmented industry. These were some words that we used initially: fragmented and consolidated. Let's see what they mean. Fragmented industry is one where no firm has a large share market. Each firm serves only a small piece of the total market in competition with others. For example, the dry cleaning service or even the garment industry in Peshawar. Consolidated industry is one dominated by a few large firms, each of which struggles to differentiate its product from those of the competition. For example, the automobile industry in Pakistan, there are just 3 or 4 main players that dominate the market, that being Toyota, Honda, Suzuki, and these days we also have Kia. Petroleum industry, similarly, if you look at it, PSO, Total, Shell, a few companies that are dominating the market. And major home appliance industries, similarly, if you look at that, Haier, Orient, Pell, Samsung, are examples of mature consolidated industries, each controlled by a few large competitors. Core competencies versus competitive advantage. What is a core competency? Core competency refers to specific set of skills and expertise that a company may have over its competitors. In order for a core competency to exist, three criteria must be met. Number one, market access. Number two, benefits to customers. And number three, unique and difficult to imitate. One of the most essential aspects of core competency is that they will help you gain access to a range of markets and customers. Core competencies also bring benefits to customers in terms of lower costs and better quality products, and cannot be easily copied or imitated. Core competencies includes things like technological know-how, skilled individuals, supply systems and processes, customer relationship management skills. For example, Tesco, which is a large grocery store very similar to Walmart, but you can even consider the CSD, has emerged as one of the largest retailers in the world because of their core competency in effectively managing supplies through their innovative supply chain, customer-focused selling strategies, personalized customer interface for online shopping, and effective delivery mechanism, etc. All of these things help Tesco to build its core competency. Competitive advantage versus core competency. Even though these terms may sound quite similar to one another, competitive advantage and core competency are quite distinct. A core competency is a specific skill set or expertise that can lead to a competitive advantage. For example, core competency is innovative supply system can lead to increased efficiency and lower cost, the lower cost being the competitive advantage. Volvo is a very famous car brand. Volvo's core competency lies in their ability to research and develop automobiles that offer high protection and safety standards. The company's competitive advantage lies in providing differentiated product valued for its high safety standard customers and surpass its competitors. This marks the end of chapter number 6, unit number 7. If you have any questions, please ask on Google Classroom. Thank you very much.